Hi friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. It's the last day of the month, so it's time for some Halloween inspiration. It also lines up perfectly for the Twiddler's Nook Instagram Spooktacular Hop, so make sure you head over to my Instagram as well, as we have a Halloween hop, and we'll give you lots of fun inspiration. I completely missed my Christmas video this month because I was traveling, so we're going to combine the two holidays for today's video. I'm using products from the Sassy Club. I have the Seasons Creeping stamp set. This is Sasseeween stamp set, and I also have the Boogie Bash paper pack. I really liked this black and white design, and I also grabbed my PopsicleSticks mini Slimline die sets. I have the Stitch Layers dies and the Scalloped frame dies, and I'm going to be creating a shaker card. I'm also going to pull out some of my black sparkle cardstock from Blonde Fawn's Autumn Sparkle cardstock pack. I have some white cardstock that I'm going to do some ink blending on, and then I'm also going to trim this pattern paper to fit as the background inside of my shaker card. So I'll go ahead and get my die cutting going. So here are my layers. I will have the design on the white, and then the scallop will cover that, and that will be my shaker. But I didn't want it to be white. I also want to bring in some more green color. I thought the green and the orange were perfect for my little Boogie, I guess I can say, because that's the Boogie Bash paper pack. So my Boogie, he in the UV light during this particular scene, he turns bright green. So I wanted to bring in that Twisted Citron color in Distress Oxide, and I have my Twiddler's Nook blending brushes. I've decided these are going to be my handheld Oxide brushes because I have other ones for just kind of regular dye based ink. So I'm absolutely loving these brushes for my Distress Oxides. They blend so nicely with this brush. And I just need that green to peek out along the edges of that die cut piece of white cardstock. So I just went around the four sides to make sure that it will be completely covered the center with my shaker panel. So now that my back or my card front is done, let's move on to assembling our shaker. I have 1/4 inch double-sided adhesive and added that around all four sides of that scallop frame, and then I trimmed a piece of acetate to fit perfectly behind that window. Since I am going with Halloween and lots of black and dark cardstocks, I'm grabbing some black foam adhesive to be the foam adhesive for my shaker card. So it's kind of wide, it won't fit behind my scallop frame, so I cut it in half and then just using these pieces to cover all four sides around my frame, making sure that my foam will be hidden by the frame scallop design. I went ahead and pulled off the release paper, and now I have my Twiddler's Nook Happy Jacks clay embellishments. I have Twiddler's Nook, the Etsy shop, linked down below in my description. I'm not an affiliate, but I'm just so glad that she sponsored me and gave me some of these fun little embellishments to be able to have in this video for you. So make sure you also head over to the Instagram hop because she puts on a great hop every 31st from, well, the first one was in January. This is the second one, and we're going to keep going all the way until Halloween. So I pulled off the release paper, right? I have my little shaker bits in there, and then I added my backing, which is that pattern paper from my Boogie Bash paper pack, and that will seal up my shaker. And then I went ahead and adhered it to my green panel. I got really excited, and I didn't add any adhesive to the back of my pattern paper, but there was still plenty of foam adhesive, so it stuck to my card front. So if I have any issues, I will just add more adhesive, but I got excited and didn't add anything behind the pattern paper, which I would recommend. So I will probably end up having to peel this apart and making sure there's a good adhesive before mailing it. I added some of my double-sided tape or my super sturdy tape to the back of the green panel and got that onto my card base, which measures 7 inches by 6.5, and then I scored the 7 inches at 3.5 and folded it. So when it's folded, it's 3.5 by 6.5. which is the largest of the dies from PopsicleSticks mini slimline stitch layer dies. Now moving on to stamping and getting my sentiment. I'm going to start with stamping my Boogie and my Santa, and I'm going to just stamp these on some alcohol marker friendly white cardstock, and I'm stamping it with my Sassy Club Onyx black ink. I did clean off the stamps before I stamped them because it was my first time using them, and sometimes new stamps have a little bit of film or residue, so I did clean them, dried them off, and now I'm going to stamp them with my black ink. I do stamp them twice. I go in for my Boogie with one more because there was like one little spot that didn't get stamped clean. And I'm going to bring in my Olo marker. So for most of my colors, I'm just doing 2, maybe 3 shades. Now my Boogie here has a lot of open space, so I do use 3 shades, and I'm going to use my YGs, the yellow greens, to match that Twisted Citron color that I did for the card front. So I'm starting with YG 2.5, and I left it on my coloring. I do speed up my videos about 1.5, but my coloring is sped up to 2 because I'm a slow colorist and I don't want to keep you here too terribly long, but I wanted you to see where I'm adding my shadows with my Olo markers so you can see how I color him in. For my midtone, I'm bringing in YG 2.3, and I'm just going over where I put in the darkest color and then just kind of bringing that color more into the white space. So the 2.5 was my darkest shadow. So now I'm going in and covering those shadows and just kind of blending that color out into, like I said, the white space. So under his kind of chin area, along the sides, under his arms, anywhere where there's shadow. So like kind of where the spider is coming from. And then my lightest color is YG 2.1. So I do start from where the darkest parts are and then color into the white, and then I completely cover everything. Now there is it's kind of obvious where my color blending is, so after I'm done with YG 2.1, I'm going to bring in the midtone, that 2.3, and kind of extend more of that midtone out. I just wanted more of that greener color. So yeah, I brought in more of the midtone, going back over and adding some more shadow and dark areas where I felt like it was needed, and then again that 2.1 to try to blend everything out. Now I have learned with Olo markers that as the alcohol dries, the blend looks a lot better. So while it looks like he has a big shiny spot in the center of his stomach, it will look a lot better as the ink dries. For the die that he's holding, I wanted to go with a bright red, so I brought in R0.5, and that will finish off the coloring for my Boogie. For Santa, I'm going to go with more of a richer red, so I brought in R1.7 to be the shadow and R1.5 to be the medium or the lighter color. So I'm only going to use 2 shades for the red because there's not a lot. Most of Santa here is his beard, so I only really needed the 2 colors for the suit. So I did a red hat, a red jacket, and I didn't want my ink to dry, so after I add the darkest color, I went ahead and brought in that lighter color. And then I also colored in the bottom of his coat, so again bringing in the darker color, and I'm adding shadow where it would be like the hat crease next to his beard, under the belt, and then close to the kind of white fluff of his jacket coat. So just again trying to imagine where there would be shadow by the way things are laying on his coat, and then completely coloring in the coat with the lighter color again. And that will finish off the reds for my Santa. Before I completely leave the reds though, I will bring back in that R0.5 and just add a little bit of shadow to that die now that it's dried, just to give it a little bit of dimension, but I didn't want to choose a darker red to add that shadow. For Santa's hat and sleeves, like the cuffs of his jacket and the bottom of his jacket, I'm going to use Warm Gray 1 point or Warm Gray 1, WG1 and WG0. So the 1 will be the shadow of all those areas on the coat and hat and also his beard, but I'll get there. And the 0 is the lighter color. And I'm just trying to give my whites shadow more so than gray. Just wanted it to have a little bit of dimension. Now for the beard, I do start out with Warm Gray 1, and I'm thinking at the time I'm just going to do the 2 colors for the beard because he has a white beard, but it just was again a lot of area to color. So even with the 1 and the 0, I just felt like it lacked dimension. So after I'm done flicking on the 0, I am going to bring in 3. I thought maybe I was going to go darker, so I also have my 5 out. But I end up just liking that Warm Gray 3 just to add a little bit more dimension in his beard because it just was such a large space. It took a little bit more to color. So when I added the shadow of 3, I brought back in 1 to blend out the mid, and then it looked a lot better. Kind of very similar to how I did my Boogie. I just wanted a little bit more to fill in his beard. For the blacks, which are his belt and gloves, I'm doing CG9. I completely colored in his belt, but I did bring in CG7, more of a cool gray, to finish coloring in the gloves, just to give the gloves a little bit of shadow and dimension. Now moving on to Santa's face, I'm using some lighter oranges, kind of more skin tony colors. So I'm going to use OR 4.2 and OR 3.2 to color in his face. I think I should have switched these. I didn't realize 3.2 was so much darker than 4.2, but that's okay. He's a little bit more tan. And then I brought in our 0.3 to add some rosy cheeks. And then I'll bring in that 4.2 again because I realized I missed his bottom lip. Now what I've been really liking lately is adding, I guess you call it stippling. So just kind of like pouncing my marker to give little spots here and there. I'm a big fan of PopsicleSticks and how she does this. You can check her out, not only her Etsy shop as well, but on Instagram. She's also in Today's Hop, so you'll definitely see her work if you head over to Instagram. And I've just been really admiring the touches she adds to her images, so I'm trying to emulate her by adding some of the stippling or little pounce dots to my images. So did the darkest color of everything, so the greens, the reds, the whites, or with gray to just add some nice detail. I will add some white gel highlights, but I'm going to do that later. I'm going to just go ahead and fussy cut these guys out. I'm not going to make you watch me cut them. You can also use a scan and cut, and sometimes Sandra does release dies for her images, so there could be dies for these in the future from the Sassy Club as well. So now that my images are cut, I'm going to go ahead and add some white gel highlights. I'm not going to show you all of them here. If you want to see close-ups, you can head over to my Instagram or my blog and you can see where I added those white gel highlights in my images. So now my shaker is kind of pretty much put together. I have the background, I have my 2 characters, I kind of know where I want them to go, and now I'm working on my sentiment. Now I don't have a banner that matches the kind of curviness of my sentiment that I'm using, which says let's roll the dice, but I thought the curvy banner from PopsicleSticks Mini Slimline Stitch Layers dies was kind of close enough, and it was just going to be kind of a funky look. So I went ahead and cut it out of my Pear Blossom Press Black Perfect Sentiment cardstock, which is perfect for embossing in white. But I will say I recommend die cutting the sentiment stock before embossing on it because it can have some troubles if you put too much pressure with the die machine. So I went ahead and die cut it first, and then using my Misty, I'm stamping my sentiment with some clear embossing ink. This particular one is from Brutus Monroe. It's probably my favorite embossing ink that I use. And then I have some ink on 3 Arctic White Ultra Fine embossing powder. I definitely recommend using ultra fine for sentiments. And then once I got my all my embossing powder cleaned up, I used my heat gun to melt that down, and I'm gonna let it cool before I wipe off any of my excess embossing powder from my cottontail tool from the Rabbit Hole Designs, which is my favorite for sentiments or when I'm embossing sentiments. So now I want to start attaching everything to my card. So I'm using just some double-sided adhesive strips on the back of my banner because it will overlap a bit with my glittery, sparkly cardstock, and I didn't want to risk it not adhering nicely to that type of texture. And then I also added just a little bit more of that black foam adhesive just where the banner ends. So, oh, it's also attaching to acetate. So that's another reason why I didn't want to use liquid glue. So now that I have my characters kind of placed where I want them on the card, I know I can slide that in my sentiment banner in there, and it will kind of start behind my green boogie guy. Um, so I just wanted that tail end. It looks nicer as the sentiment ends, if that makes sense. I'm adding foam adhesive behind both my characters, again, doing it in black since I have it, and this is a darker card. And I'm going to peel off all the release paper from my Boogie monster, and he'll be on the left, so let me get that all taken off. And then I'm going to use my grid to kind of help me get my card centered so I know where to place my Boogie monster. And you can see that the sentiment ends perfectly behind him. And then I'll peel off all the paper behind my Santa and get him placed on to the right of my Boogie monster, just under my sentiment. And that's going to finish off my shaker card. I hope you enjoyed today's Halloween and kind of Christmas inspiration for March. Again, you can find our Instagram hop over on Instagram. So I'll link my account down below so you can head over and hop with us. I hope you'll have lots of fun seeing all the fun inspiration today there as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!